Today we're going to be taking a look at Sinton. He is just absurd. If you've been following along with my free-to-play account, you know that I pulled him pretty early on and invested in him as my carry, and holy cow, he is so far surpassed my expectations. I think he might be better than Holder, and that might be a controversial thing to say, but I'm comparing my progress here to my progress on my main account, and I'm running my Holder with a 5 Awakened Liz and a 4 Awakened Ogman, and Sinton, just with this support, is like right on his heels in progression, and I've spent money on that account. Things are very different over there, and Sinton is like right behind him in the things that he's capable of doing. So real quick, I'll give you a quick tour of everything he's accomplished so far. We are in Hell campaign now. I have not tried it yet, but we did clear 1210. We've cleared it all on full auto. The only adjustment that I had to make at one point was I threw some gear on Maya and threw her in. One of the stages in 11, I think it was giving us some trouble with debuffs, so we threw a 4-star Maya in and she took care of it. But him with this support, mostly her, honestly, her and him have been great support for him. But he's gotten us through the Nightmare campaign with very little help. He has gotten us pretty far in the dungeons as well. Wow, red dots everywhere. He's carried us to 19 rum. I haven't tried 19 in a while. He might be able to clear that. We're at 18 on a free. Gwyneth, I haven't done yet. Neja, we're at 13. Growlin, we're at 14. Marius, we're at 9. And again, I haven't come in here and tried these in a couple of days. I've made a little bit of progression since I've tried to do them. So he's dope, man. He's real strong. We are on floor 18 in the Force Mark. I'm sorry, the Blue Mark dungeon. And he has us sitting comfortably in Plat Arena. We have to be a little bit careful about the fights that we pick, but he does pretty well, right? He does pretty well for us up here in Plat Arena. So he's well worth investing in. I have no regrets whatsoever about investing in him, and I'll probably continue to invest in him. He's got a great kit. He's a real strong champ. He almost has a team comp in his kit. You know what I mean? He's almost a full team comp in his kit. So let's talk about what he does, and then we'll get to the gear and emblems and all that stuff, okay? On his A1, 180% defense damage to a single enemy with a chance to place provoke. Skill him up, that becomes a 30% chance. So basically 1 in 3. And it's defense damage, which is dope, right? He deals defense damage, which means as we scale up his tankiness, we also scale up his damage. Defensive damage dealers are always really nice to have because they're not like your attackers that are glass cannons. If you go full damage, you have to set those champs up to do something, right? You have to give them the booster and the protection and try to keep them from getting hit. Defensive damage dealers are fine. They can take the hits. So that's one real nice thing about him. His second skill, 180% defense damage to all enemies. This skill deals 30% more damage to targets under provoke status. Again, he puts up provoke on the A1. You're about to see that he puts it up elsewhere as well. So he does bonus damage to targets that are under provoke, and he is going to do a pretty good job of keeping provoke up on everyone. So great skill. Passive, 60% chance to counterattack when taking direct damage. You get him skilled up, this is 100%. It's a permanent counterattack buff that can't be removed. He is going to counterattack every single time he gets hit, unless he is stunned or frozen or controlled in some way. This is huge. This is craziness. It's a counterattack that you can't stop from happening unless you can lock him down with control effects, okay? And then his ult increases self-defense for 2 turns, with a 60% chance to inflict provoke on all enemies for 1 turn. He buffs himself. He gives himself the good defense buff. So again, he's further extending his tankiness and his ability to output damage. He's putting a provoke on all enemies without hitting them, so there's no weak hit here. So provoke on all enemies. Counterattacks every time he gets hit. Chance to put provoke with the A1. So he's going to start the fight off by putting provoke on all the enemies. They're going to hit him. He's going to counterattack. He's got a chance to put a provoke on him again. He's got real good potential to lock people down into just focusing on him. So again, unless someone's got like a good stun or a good freeze or something on their A1, it's going to be tough for them to get going because he's going to keep them locked down. The 30% chance to provoke is pretty handy, right? So obviously you're going to want some effect hit on him. We'll talk about his gear and stuff now. Actually, let's take a look at his gear. I'll talk about what I'm doing with him and then some other ideas that I have for him, right? Because there's a few different ways you could go here. I'm leaning a little bit more into my damage output for now. One, because I'm running him on a leech set. As he's my carry, I need him to be able to sustain a little bit, even if the support goes down. So I've got him on a leech set, and then I crafted a slay set for a mission a while back and got some decent pieces, so I put that on him, right? This one's got crit rate, crit damage, and effect hit. And then here we've got a little crit rate as well. Not great pieces, but like decent for the time that I had them, and I just haven't revisited his gear in a while. But it's been working fine. Like I said, we just cleared the Nightmare campaign, and he's almost doing it alone, right? Weem is awesome. Guhana or Guyana? I keep mixing Guhana. They've been great supports. I'm not trying to like take away from their contribution, but he's definitely carrying 80%, 85% of our progress on his, low shoulders. So we've got him on Leech and Slay. If you're earlier in the game, I would recommend putting him on some Leech. You're going to want him to have a little bit of lifesteal. I do believe that that's pretty handy. You obviously want to focus his defense, so defense sets are going to be solid. I don't think speed is that big of a deal on him. If you wanted to have a little bit of speed, fine. I don't think I would focus a speed set, right? Having him go early to get the provokes out is nice, but I don't think it's that big of a deal. They're still going to hit him at the beginning of the fight. He's still going to counterattack. You know what I mean? I don't think speed is a big deal. I wouldn't worry too much about speed. You could think about a crit rate set. I probably wouldn't bother with a crit damage set early in the game because crit rate's going to be kind of hard to get. So you might throw a crit damage set on him, but he might have 8 crit rate. You know what I mean? So you're not really going to be getting much out of that. Effect hit is not a bad idea for a set for a while. You want him landing the provoke. Him landing the provokes is going to be pretty important for you, so that's pretty good. Tenacity's not a terrible shout. You can reduce his chance of taking a crit. I think Leech is a fantastic set for him. I think Leech is definitely what you want to focus. The game also gives you some pretty good Leech gear as you progress kind of early on, so you can slot those pieces right onto him. So I think early game you're probably looking at something like a defense set and a Leech set, maybe an effect hit set and a Leech set, something along those lines. If you've got real good 4-piece Leech, you could do that, I reckon. But the stats you want to focus on this guy are definitely going to be defense, effect hit, and then I'm going crit stats. I'm trying out crit stats. As you progress a little bit further, maybe you want to start using him in PvP a bit more. I think having some effect resistance is not going to be a terrible idea either, because you do want to avoid him catching stuns and getting controlled like that. Another reason is because dot damage is rough, right? Especially the burns. The burns can be real bad because they get to ignore defense and they scale on the caster's attack. So it slices right through. Burns are real bad for him. So if you can resist him, that's good. Otherwise, you're going to need to run somebody that can take care of those debuffs for him because those hurt. The times that I've struggled the most using him are times that I'm getting dot damage put on me and can't do anything about it, right? Dot damage will melt him because you're stacking defense so high, he's got very little HP anyway. So I think effect resistance later is going to get more important. As you progress and start facing tougher competition, I think effect resistance might not be a bad way to go. So defense, effect hit, I like crit stats, and then effect resistance a little bit later are probably the stats you want to focus. The game suggests HP, defense, and effect hit. I don't necessarily recommend HP, but HP's never a bad idea. You know what I mean? I wouldn't hard focus it. I wouldn't put him in HP sets unless you're so early in the game, that's all you've got at your disposal. You know what I mean? As far as the bottom row, we've got crit rate here, again, because I'm trying to lean crit rate on him. For the middle one, I went with effect resistance here. I was rocking a flat defense for a little bit, but again, I wanted to try to get some effect resistance on him, and that has been very helpful. I'm kind of at that point now where I'm starting to need that. And then over here, I've got another flat defense on him, so basically, you're just looking for all the important stats in your substats, right? Any defense percentage, any effect hit, any crit stats, and like I said a little bit later, any effect resistance you can get in the substats is going to be great. if you end up with a little speed in your substats, fine. I would not hard focus it. I would not give him speed as a main stat here. I would not lean into speed. He doesn't need it. He's gonna do plenty for you with his counterattacks. So I think that's probably it for his gear. I think we're pretty squared away on his gear. So let's talk now about his emblem tree. This is what I've done. If you want to use it as a point of reference, let me move real quick so you can grab a screenshot of that if you want to. And then we'll talk about what I've done here. There's obviously different ways you could do this. There's different ways we could go here. There are certainly things that could be useful for him in the support tree, right? There's a lot of effect hit bonuses and things of that nature here. So it can be done. I decided to go with attack and defense because I'm leaning so heavily into his damage output for now. I really want to see how far I can go with focusing him as a damage dealer rather than just like a tanky controller. So that's what we've done here. So I've gone crit rate. I've gone when self HP is full, he does more damage. If I was going to redo this, I think the only one that I currently have that I would change is this one, and I would probably put on Shield Slam so he could do more damage to targets with shield. I think I would rather have that. I went with this pretty early on. Obviously, it's not too hard to unlock this one really early on, and I was thinking he's got a leech set. Hopefully, he'll be keeping himself healed up, and this will be good. Leech set isn't going to keep his health full. He's not going to be doing enough damage that early on to be filling his health back up. So I probably would have gone with this one. I think this one would serve me a lot better, so I may even redo it and go Shield Slam. Everything else I'm pretty happy with, though, so far. We've got Arrogant, where before the end of the first turn of each wave, he does more damage. We've got direct damage dealt in the next turn for every target killed. Obviously, he's our carry. He's going to be getting a lot of kills, so we're just boosting his damage for the kills he gets. When he has a buff, he deals more damage. He gives himself a defense buff, so even if he's the only one alive, he'll give himself a defense buff and do more damage because of it. Twofold, because defense scales his damage, and then this gives him a little bit of a bonus as well. Victory Rush for targets under control status. Provoke is considered control. That's one of his identifiers, so he's going to do a real good job of keeping provokes up, which means he gets to do bonus damage to them. When attacking targets whose HP is higher than his self, he does more damage. Again, we're not focusing HP that heavily on him. I'm leaning much more defense. So it's not unlikely that champs are going to have higher HP than him. Even some attackers might, right? Because again, I'm purely focusing defense on him. So if someone's built an attacker in the same way and happen to have a little bit more HP in their substats, they'll have more HP. He'll do more damage to them, right? New Lease of Life. When attacking targets with less than 50% HP, does more damage. Again, just helping get people out of the fight a little bit quicker, which is nice. And then crit damage bump here, obviously for obvious reasons. Over here, we went with a defense bump. We went with damage reflect. We went with dot damage received. I want to mitigate that dot damage at every opportunity because, like I said, that's probably his kryptonite. Anyone that ignores defense obviously is going to be tough. And then dot damage is real hard to deal with. And you're going to encounter dot damage a lot more than you're going to encounter ignore defense. So any chance, any opportunity you get to mitigate that, I think you should take it. When an ally dies, damage taken is, he gets damage reduction. He's our carry. Everyone around him is going to die. That's the way it goes. For enemies whose defense is lower than self, he takes less damage. So again, it's kind of a double whammy there. He's going to have higher defense than most champs, right? Because we're focusing defense on him so heavily. So he's already going to be hard to damage. And now if they have less defense than him, they're going to do less damage. So I thought that was a good way to go. And then damage received, damage received stacks, not stacks, but like scales based on the level. And then when the turn ends, the effect -1, 2, and 3%. My understanding of this is if it's maxed, the first turn, he's going to have 9% less damage received. The second turn, when the turn ends, the effect -1, 2, and 3%. I guess it's to scale with the higher number. So he'll have 9% the first turn, 6% the third turn, right? I guess I don't fully understand this one. It made sense in my head, but then when I start saying it out loud, it starts to sound weird. Damage received -3, 6, and 9%. when the turn ends, this effect -1. I feel like it just dwindles over time for the first 3 turns, right? And then you're there. I guess I don't really. I guess the idea is after 3 turns it just goes away. So for the first 3 turns you've got damage mitigation and then it's gone. Either way, I think it's going to be nice for Arena, especially since we're not building speed on him. He's going to take the first hit unless we're running him with a comp that fixes that. So again, just more damage mitigation. Lets him get rolling, right? Or in the campaign even, it lets him get rolling. If we're not faster than the enemies, he can take the hits a little bit better to start getting his provokes out and start doing the things that he does. Okay, so that's my emblem tree. Again, there's more ways to do it. I'd have to do a whole video to cover them. I feel like this mastery system, quote unquote, is much more diverse than raids. I feel like you've got a lot more options here for champs, whereas in raid, for a lot of champs, there's kind of one right way to do it. I feel like the way this game is set up, there's probably several ways to do it for most champs that are all very good. So this is what I've gone with. If you need a point of reference, there it is. I would encourage you to play around with it though, as you get a little bit more comfortable with what's going on in the game. As far as auras go, I've actually unlocked auras now. I think I can go start farming auras, which is dope. So I think the one I'm thinking, there's a few ways you could go here. The auras are a very interesting system because even more so than the emblems, there are so many right answers here. It's going to depend very heavily on how you're using him, what gear you've already got on him, what holes you might need filled in your stats. Because, for example, here we've got restores HP when he gets a kill. For here, we've got effect hit up. Here we've got extra crit rate. Like any of these would be good. You know what I mean? So I can't really tell you like this is the one for him, because it's going to depend on where the holes are in your Sinton. You're not gonna have one identical to me. So like while I'm thinking I might lean like range hit or crit rate, you might need the HP on the kill. You might need something else, you know what I mean? And then as you start to get up here, they get a bit stronger and they get more interesting. When landing a crit, this attack has more leech. That's a great one for the way mine is set up right now, right? I'm trying to lean crit in him. I've got him in leech. I'm kind of relying on him to do heavy damage to heal himself with leech. That's a great one. This seems like a good one for most champs, right? Uses, after casting a skill, you just restore health by 18%. Is just nutty. That's ridiculous, dude. Increases direct damage dealt. It's real tough. It's real tough to give you a recommendation on these. I'll have to come in and look at them all very specifically. You can, again, you'll see Sinton often, and I'll be talking about his progress in my free-to-play series that we do on this account. I can tell you I'm probably going to lean into the crit a little bit. I might give him a little bit more crit, especially him. I think this is a good one for him because he's going to be counterattacking with his basic attack so much. Having that extra crit rate so he can do more damage is going to be nice. So we'll start here, and then as we go up, we'll see which ones we think. But it's tough to give a recommendation on an aura, I think, because it's just going to depend so heavily on what you're doing and what holes your gear has left you with. So I'll keep you guys posted. You can follow along in the series on that one if you want to see what we end up doing with him. But I think that's pretty much it. As far as where to use him, I think he's a solid carry. So I think for a lot of the early game, and probably even as you transition into the mid game, I think he's good everywhere. There's really nowhere I've taken him that he hasn't done well for me. There's been a couple times I've had to swap in like who I'm running with him to give him a little bit of support in different ways. But he's a very strong champ. He's well worth the resources. So if you're newer to the game, especially, which I assume a lot of you are, especially if you're watching a guide on him, maybe looking for some advice, I think he's well worth investing in. It's hard to say. It's still hard to say if I think he's better than Holder, but I think there's a case. I think there's a discussion to be had because again, he's right on my main account's heels, and we've spent no money in this account. So. And he's got way less support around him than my Holder does. So yeah, that's it. That's a quick guide on Sinton. Hopefully this helps you out. Hopefully this convinces you to build him if you got him. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them below. And if you're using this guy, if you're using him in different ways than I've talked about here, you know, if you leaned more tankiness and control and less damage, let me know like what you're doing with him and how it's working out for you. If you have any other suggestions for the emblem tree you want to drop below for people, any of that, I'm all for you guys helping each other out in the comments. I always appreciate it. I know people do as well. So that's it. I do hope this was helpful. I'm gonna get out of here. I appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you later.